All right, we're going to take a look at what's in the box for MPC's Hawk Mark 9 from Space 1999. Now, I've already gone ahead and done us all the favor of taking the parts out of the crinkly plastic. Nobody wants to hear that sound. Okay, the instructions for the Hawk are fairly standard. You get a little bit of explanation of what the model is, warnings about decal application, and then the standard step-by-step instructions. Now, the instructions just assume a start-to-finish build. So as with any kit, you'll want to go through and look at the various steps and decide what assembly order you want to do things in, where you want sub-assemblies, what you want to put on the model that can be painted, what you may want to hold off. Like for instance, on this, on the engine pods and things like that, there's some orange and white areas, there's stripes and things like that. If you glue it all together, it may be a little more difficult to make those happen. So I always like to go through and sort of make a few notes on the instructions about what to glue together, what not to glue together, reminders about what to paint, that kind of thing. So you may want to consider that, but the instructions very clear, very well illustrated. They look pretty good. I wish all manufacturers were this clear with their instructions. This is the sprue that contains the main fuselage section. You'll notice, I notice right off the bat, there's a little flash on the molds. There doesn't appear to be too much around most of the parts. It seems, in looking through the model, that more of it is concentrated towards the outside edge of where the mold was. The sprue gates are fairly large, but that's just, quite honestly, that's typical of this type of molding from manufacturers that do a lot of sci-fi kits that I've seen. They're not as fine and precise as others are. However, having said that, the parts themselves are fairly sharply molded. It's not Edward quality, it's not Tamiya quality, but they're very sharp in their detail. There's not a lot of softness to them. It's one of the better moldings I've seen for a sci-fi kit from this manufacturer. Here's another sprue containing some of the engine nacelle parts, an engine nozzle. You'll notice here that there are some very finely cast parts. This is all one piece. This is going to be really difficult to cut away without breaking something. So they've done a fairly good job. Again, you note this section here, now it has nothing to do with the parts, but you can see how heavy the sprue sections are, the sprue gates. But on aside from, again, some flash around the periphery of the sprue, it's fairly clean in terms of molding. There are a few places where there is a sprue bit in the middle of a part, like right here, or where there's just one hanging on as right here that you'll need to be aware of as you're preparing the parts for assembly. As with the other sprues, it shows very good molding here. With this is one of the engine parts, more of the nacelle parts. Again, an example of a really finely cast piece of framework here, but at the same time, there's a lot of sprue connection points. So be very careful. I'll have to be very careful, and of course when you build it, you would need to be careful too. On this type of part where it's very, very easy to break something, because when you use your sprue cutters, when you cut, when it pinches, unless you have some of the really expensive ones that slice through, what it does is it doesn't just cut neatly, it pushes, if this is the part and this is the sprue connection, it pushes it apart. On a larger piece like this, that's not really a problem. A little bit of flex won't hurt it. On something small like this, it can break the part. So a lot of times what I like to use is a small razor saw, one of the photo etch size ones that's very thin, and I'll actually carefully saw through the part to make sure that I don't put any stress on these small delicate sections here. Even if you cut the sprue further back, it can put some pressure on the part. So not just with this kit, but any kit, taking care in that area is very important. All right, this is the final sprue. It contains most of the delicate parts that go on the model. You'll see again there's more of these very thin framework tube parts that make up a lot of the external frame of the model. So great care will be needed in terms of removing those from the sprue. These are particularly delicate. They connect right here at the sprue. There's two connection points and another one there. Those are really going to take some finesse to get off of there without breaking. So be aware of that. But again, all of the molding looks really nice with this kit. I've only been building sci-fi kits for not quite 2 years now, but this is one of the nicer moldings I've seen from a company that is not known for having the Eduard and Tamiya type sprue quality. Here's the decal sheet, or decals, or decals, depending on where you're from, for the model. It's a very extensive sheet of markings. The studio models had lots of little sections that were painted different colors. I don't know why. I guess that was just a style. And you can paint those sections onto the model, but some of these actually contain detail in terms of additional line printing that make up surface detail for the model. So if you hand paint all of these various markings, you'll have to take into account that there's little bits of detail in here. I think I'm just going to use the decals and call it a day with it. There's a lot of them. However, they're very fine quality. It says that these decals, I'm reading the fine print here, it says made in China except for decals which are made in Italy. It doesn't state that I see who made them, but there are some very good decal manufacturers in Italy, Cartograph not being the least. And these, I don't know if these are Cartograph, but looking at how well they're printed, how minimal the carrier film is in terms of spreading beyond the printed part of the decals, I mean, there's virtually none that you'd have to worry about. These are some high quality decals. So they did a great job in terms of giving you markings for this model. A stand is also included. In my opinion, it's a little cheap. It's a piece of wire that you can either insert in the bottom so that it's held at an angle about like that, or into one of the thruster bells so that it sits like that. And it just sits in here, I guess, like that. It's not the greatest stand in the world that I've ever seen, so you may want to consider a replacement if you're really serious about the display of this, but it does come with this stand. Okay, final note, don't throw away your box. The bottom of the box contains all of the painting and marking instructions. So you'll definitely want to keep this box. And they do show two different variants. One is a pre-production version that didn't have all the color on it, and the other is the more familiar, very colorful orange and white version. So if you're one of those folks who likes to grab the pieces out of the box, snap them off, put them into a Ziploc bag, and toss the box away for storage purposes, might want to keep the box on this one. All right, that's a look at the parts and the things that come in the box. Overall, I'm fairly impressed with this kit. I think it's going to build up into a pretty cool looking model. A bit unusual, not something that I think you see on a lot of model builders' shelves. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how it goes together. Happy day to you, friends. Bye-bye.